The deep space listening post floated at the edge of the galaxy, far from busy trade routes or settled worlds. Hardly anyone ever passed through that lonely stretch of space, and that was exactly why the Kalari placed a station there. It was quiet, predictable, and safe until the day a strange signal blinked onto the monitors dotted first. The workers on duty thought it was just another burst of cosmic noise. It happened often. But this signal didn't fade. It grew stronger, clearer, and carried a rhythm that no natural phenomenon could create. One of the operators leaned closer to the screen, thinking the data must be wrong. The energy signature was unstable, shifting in a way that looked almost chaotic, almost dangerous. The Kalari were not a nervous species, but they were careful. They believed the galaxy was full of surprises, and most of those surprises were best approached slowly. So when the unidentified vessel appeared on long-range scans, the station contacted the Central Council immediately. Within hours, the council chambers buzzed with debate. The unknown craft's size was small, its hull seemed oddly reinforced, and its path suggested that it had traveled through an uncharted region known for hazardous anomalies. Some council members suggested it might belong to a minor species experimenting with technology they did not fully understand. Others suspected the ship might be damaged or abandoned, drifting without control. One elder suggested it could even be a refugee vessel fleeing some disaster. The idea made the room fall silent. Nobody wanted to think about another tragedy reaching their space dock. Despite all the speculation, one thing seemed certain. Whatever species built that ship must be fragile and inexperienced. The vessel lacked the smooth, elegant design common among advanced civilizations. It looked rough, almost crude. The hull plating was irregular. The engines produced a strange pulse, and the vessel traveled with an unpredictable wobble. No one imagined for a moment that the crew aboard might be anything but weak. There was another detail, one so surprising that the council thought it must be an error. The ship's origin appeared to trace back to a system containing a Class 12 planet, a death world, a world marked unsafe for sapient life, a world where even the most durable species would perish within hours. The council dismissed the reading. It had to be a miscalculation. No civilization could rise on such a planet. With that assumption in mind, they prepared a standard low-threat first contact protocol. That meant sending a diplomatic escort, not a military one. They didn't want to intimidate whoever was inside that ship. In their minds, the approaching species must already be overwhelmed, scared, or injured. Within a cycle, the escort vessel reached the unknown craft and initiated boarding procedures. The Kalari moved carefully, their movements slow and peaceful to show they meant no harm. Their suits glowed softly in the dim lighting of the alien ship's corridors as they stepped inside. What they found surprised them immediately. The internal design was completely unlike anything they expected from a fragile species. The walls were reinforced with heavy metal bracing. Multiple layers of shielding protected even the simplest equipment. The conduits and machinery looked overbuilt, as if designed to survive disasters that other species never even planned for. Emergency systems were everywhere, redundant power lines, oxygen storage packs, shock absorbers built directly into the floor. It looked less like a spacecraft and more like a bunker. The leader of the escort team examined the panel, trying to understand the logic behind the construction. Why build a vessel like this? Why waste so much material? Did the inhabitants feel constantly unsafe? Or did their world demand such extreme preparation? Before anyone could guess, footsteps echoed down the corridor. When the humans stepped into view, the Kalari froze. The newcomers looked nothing like the delicate, soft-bodied creatures the council imagined. They stood upright with a relaxed confidence, their movements steady even in the uneven gravity of their ship. Their bodies seemed unexpectedly solid, their expressions calm. Even their eyes held a focus the Kalari rarely saw alert. curious, unafraid. For a moment, both groups simply stared at each other. The Kalari expected a struggle to communicate, but the humans greeted them casually, almost warmly, as if meeting new travelers was an everyday event. Their voices carried a bright tone, their posture was open, and their faces moved with expressive friendliness. But to the Kalari, that friendliness came with confusing signals. The humans stepped forward instead of staying still. They raised their hands in a gesture that seemed large and sudden. Their faces shifted into wide, tooth-showing smiles. The Kalari did not understand that a smile was a sign of goodwill. To them, it looked uncomfortably close to a threat display. Still, the humans seemed entirely unaware of the fear they caused. They spoke with ease, asking if the escort team needed assistance, offering to guide them through the ship, and apologizing for the rough condition of the corridors. Apparently, the humans believed the ship had not been properly cleaned. The Kalari tried their best to stay composed. They scanned the humans discreetly, and what they found made their hearts quicken. The readings showed dense muscle fiber, fast neural responses, and a level of radiation tolerance that made no biological sense. How could a species with such physiology come from anywhere but a hardened survival world? The scan also revealed something else: strong emotional responses. Humans cared deeply about how the visitors felt. They asked if anyone was uncomfortable, if the temperature was too cold, or if the lighting was too dim. This confused the Kalari even more. How could a species so physically intimidating act with such casual kindness? Despite the tension, the humans remained polite, even cheerful. They invited the Kalari to their common room, offering food, though the Kalari declined out of caution. The humans didn't seem offended. They simply shrugged and continued chatting among themselves, seemingly excited to meet an alien species. For the first time got to the Kalari, this behavior felt strange. Most species reacted with caution or fear during first contact, but humans looked almost excited, curious, ready for adventure. Their attitudes didn't match their power. They behaved like harmless travelers, yet their bodies told a completely different story. The escort team exchanged uneasy glances. Could these beings truly come from a death world? Could they have evolved on a planet full of storms, predators, and extreme conditions? The idea seemed unbelievable, but the evidence was impossible to ignore. What unsettled the Kalari even more was that the humans didn't seem to realize they were unusual. They spoke about their home planet casually, mentioning things like shifting weather, rough terrain, dangerous wildlife, and natural disasters, as if these were completely normal experiences. When one of the humans told a story about a storm that had destroyed half a town back on their world, they described it not with terror, but with humor and nostalgia. To the Kalari, such an event would be a catastrophic, historic tragedy. To the humans, it was an anecdote. After hours of interaction, the escort team sent a quiet message back to the council. The new species is nothing like we expected. They are from the Class 12 world, and they appear comfortable with it. The council members read the message in stunned silence. The galaxy had laws for dealing with Deathworld organisms, but no one had ever imagined a full, intelligent civilization emerging from one. No one had considered the possibility that beings who survived such an extreme environment might travel the stars. And yet, here they were standing inside a reinforced ship, smiling with their strange display of friendliness, talking about their dangerous world as casually as one might speak of a peaceful vacation spot. As the escort vessel guided the human ship toward a neutral station for a formal introduction, tension spread across every level of the Kalari administration. They had misjudged the situation completely. They had treated the humans like a fragile species, but now they understood they might be dealing with something entirely different, not hostile, not aggressive, but undeniably powerful. Nobody knew What would happen next? Some feared disaster. Others hoped for cooperation. Most simply felt overwhelmed. The humans, on the other hand, chatted excitedly about the upcoming meeting, unaware of the waves they were sending through the galaxy dot. And as the two ships drifted together toward the diplomatic station, one quiet thought echoed through the minds of every Kalari official. The diplomatic station where the meeting was supposed to happen stood like a floating jewel above a calm blue gas giant. Thousands of small lights dotted its outer frame, blinking softly in patterns that signaled peace. For the Kalari, this place had always been a symbol of calm communication. Problems were solved here. Alliances were formed here. No one had ever imagined this quiet station would one day host the most confusing and unpredictable species anyone had ever encountered. As the human ship approached, the Kalari escort team tried to stay composed, but their nerves grew tighter with every passing moment. The memory of stepping inside the human ship kept replaying in their minds. The overbuilt corridors, the strange materials, the humans walking around casually as if none of it was unusual. And now the whole station was preparing to meet them. Inside the station, workers rushed around trying to prepare special rooms for the newcomers. They added extra oxygen filters, adjusted the temperature to match the human readings, and installed translation devices in every corner. But even with all these preparations, no one truly knew what to expect. The Kalari had hosted many species over the years, but humans seemed different in a way that no one could fully explain. Meanwhile, the humans stood at their viewing window, watching the station grow larger. They looked excited, pointing at the design of the structure and discussing what kind of people might live inside. Their excitement reminded one of the Kalari of how young explorers acted on peaceful training missions. But these weren't inexperienced travelers. They were beings who had somehow survived on a world most species wouldn't even step foot on. When the docking sequence began, a soft vibration passed through both ships. The doors locked into place, and a gentle chime echoed through the hallway. It was the signal that the air had equalized and the path between the two vessels was now safe to cross. The escort team formed a respectful line, preparing to welcome the humans into the station. They practiced the greeting gesture one last time, hoping the humans would understand it this time. Before they could finish rehearsing, the human door slid open, and the visitors stepped out with bright, animated expressions. The Kalari stiffened. Even when the humans tried to look friendly, they gave off a kind of energy that other species weren't used to. Their movements were smooth but powerful, and their steps sounded too firm on the metal floors. They looked around the docking bay with open curiosity, as if they expected something exciting to happen. One human lifted an arm in a large, enthusiastic wave. The Kalari flinched at the sudden motion, thinking it might be a warning signal. But then the human simply said hello in a warm, cheerful voice. The escort team attempted their greeting gesture slow, palms together, heads slightly bowed. The humans paused, confused. They looked at one another before trying to imitate it. Their attempt was clumsy but genuine, and the Kalari appreciated the effort more than the accuracy. The walk toward the meeting chamber began with careful steps from one side and relaxed strides from the other. Humans talked softly among themselves, pointing out the glowing patterns on the walls and the floating light orbs that decorated the hallways. The Kalari listened, trying to interpret the humans' tone. They seemed happy, but their happiness carried an intensity that made the Kalari uneasy. Even the station officers who quietly observed from the balconies above whispered nervously to each other. The humans didn't look dangerous in the usual sense. No weapons, no aggressive actions, no threatening posture. But there was something about their presence, something impossible to measure on a scan. They looked like beings who had learned to navigate chaos, who had survived environments that never allowed rest. And that kind of experience shaped a species. in ways more peaceful civilizations could hardly imagine. By the time they reached the wide chamber prepared for the first diplomatic meeting, the Kalari officials waiting inside stood politely but tensely. They had practiced speeches, rehearsed calming tones, and adjusted their body language to avoid accidental signals of fear. Still, nothing prepared them for what happened when the humans entered the room. The humans smiled, not a small, polite smile, but wide, truth-filled, enthusiastic smiles. To them, this expression meant friendliness. To the Kalari, it looked more like someone showing off sharp objects. It wasn't their fault. It was simply how they evolved. But the reaction was immediate, and silent half the room stiffened in. Alarm. The humans didn't notice. They were too busy admiring the architecture and whispering excitedly about the glowing designs on the ceiling. When the meeting finally began, the translation devices struggled to keep up. Human speech patterns were unpredictable. They used metaphors, casual phrases, and expressions with double meanings. The devices translated every word literally, leaving the Kalari confused. At one point, a human said, "Break the ice," hoping to ease tension. The translators interpreted it as a warning about structural failure. The Kalari panicked so quietly that even the humans didn't notice. Still, everyone tried to communicate. The Kalari spoke slowly and carefully, explaining their concerns. The humans nodded politely, genuinely wanting to help. But their expressions, gestures, and tone often sent mixed signals. A small demonstration table had been set up with samples of food from various member species. The idea was simple: offer safe snacks as a welcoming gesture. The humans appreciated the gesture, but politely declined the samples, explaining that they weren't sure what they could safely digest. One human joked softly that they didn't want to drop dead in front of new friends, and the translation device rendered it as, "We do not want to collapse and become non-functional in your presence." The Kalari stared at them, horrified. Only after a long moment did a human realize what must have happened. They gently explained the joke, attempting to keep the tone light. The Kalari politely nodded, though none of them fully understood why humans joked about such serious topics. Then came the incident with the handshake. Human reached out a hand toward a Kalari, a gesture humans used to show trust. The Kalari, unfamiliar with this custom and startled by the sudden movement, reacted by stepping back sharply. They thought the human was trying to restrain them. The humans immediately apologized. Their voices softened, their posture relaxed, and they tried to reassure the Kalari with calm smiles. Unfortunately, calming human smiles looked even more like mild threats, so the moment became even more awkward. But despite all the confusion, the meeting wasn't hostile. Nobody felt unsafe. The problem wasn't aggression, it was misunderstanding. Both sides wanted to communicate, but their expectations and instincts kept clashing. After several hours of conversation, the meeting wrapped up. The humans bowed slightly, an attempt to mimic the Kalari greeting, and said that they were honored to be invited. The Kalari returned the gesture, grateful the meeting had ended without any major incident. Yet as soon as the humans left the ice chamber, the Kalari officials released long, shaky breaths. Their minds raced with questions. Why were the humans so expressive? Why were their gestures so large? Why were their bodies so adapted to conditions that would injure most species instantly? But above all, the biggest question was, how had a species like this evolved on a Class 12 death world? The station's analysis team had run multiple scans, hoping to find an error. But the readings were the same every time. Humans came from a world full of extreme temperatures, unpredictable storms, powerful animals, and natural challenges that most species would consider impossible to survive. And yet these beings did more than survive. They thrived. They laughed. They explored. They approached new situations with curiosity instead of fear. Later that evening, while the humans settled into their specially prepared quarters, the Kalari gathered in a quiet meeting room to discuss the day. There was no anger in the discussion, only confusion and amazement. Some believed the humans were remarkable opportunity beings who could help the galaxy understand resilience in a way no one had before. Others worried that misunderstandings could lead to trouble if not handled gently. But everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy had never met a species like this. Even in their resting quarters, the humans didn't act like visitors surrounded by nervous hosts. Instead, they chatted excitedly about the glowing ceiling patterns, the gravity adjusters, the transparent walkways, and the food dispensers they didn't quite understand. They laughed, not realizing that the sound carried down the hallway and startled passing Kalari. That night, as the station's lights dimmed to their nighttime setting, a gentle silence drifted through the corridors. But the minds of everyone who met the humans remained awake with curiosity. The first diplomatic meeting hadn't gone smoothly, but it hadn't gone badly either. It felt like trying to communicate across two completely different ways of seeing the universe. And yet, there was potential. Real potential. No one felt fear, anymore only wonder. No one felt threatened, only overwhelmed. The humans had arrived, and nothing in the galaxy would ever feel the same again. And somewhere deep in the station, a quiet thought passed from one Kalari to another. These newcomers, they are different. But maybe different is exactly what we needed. After the first meeting at the station, news about the humans spread faster than anyone had expected. Small communication channels carried reports from the escort team, the station staff, and even wandering traders who had glimpsed the newcomers. Everywhere, species who had never even imagined interacting with humans suddenly wanted to know more. They were curious. Some were cautious. Others were outright alarmed. The Kalari Council was flooded with messages from across the galaxy. Some species demanded that humans be contained immediately, citing their strength, resilience, and unpredictable behavior as potential threats. Others were eager to study the humans in controlled environments, hoping to understand how a species from a Class 12 death world could survive conditions that would destroy almost anything else. The humans themselves, meanwhile, remained unaware of the growing concern. They went about their daily routines with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. Some explored the station's observation decks, looking out at the stars, comparing them with maps from their home system. Others practiced the local customs, laughing quietly when their gestures went slightly wrong. They were polite and genuinely interested in understanding alien life, but their very presence seemed to make the galaxy feel unpredictable. A week after the initial arrival, a summit was called at the station. Delegates from multiple species gathered in the central chamber, an immense hall with walls of softly glowing crystal and a floor that shimmered like water. The chamber was designed to make first impressions feel calm, but that calm was now filled with tension. Many species had not seen humans before, and all of them had prepared for a diplomatic meeting that, they expected, would be cautious at best. When the humans entered, the room fell silent. They moved easily among the delegates, smiling openly and greeting everyone politely. Their gestures were large, friendly, and most importantly confident. They spoke clearly, asking questions about the customs, the environment, and the cultures of each species. They listened with careful attention, nodding politely, and responded with explanations about their own ways of life in a calm and direct tone. For some delegates, the humans' behavior was startling. These visitors came from a world that one thought could produce intelligent life. They were strong, capable, and surprisingly cheerful, all at the same time. It was hard to know whether to fear them, admire them, or simply be confused. The smaller species in particular kept their distance, unsure how to respond to these creatures who radiated an energy of survival without aggression. During the introductions, a small misunderstanding occurred. A human reached toward a delegate. In what they thought was a respectful gesture, a handshake meant to show goodwill, the delegate froze. To their species, this gesture looked aggressive, like an attack waiting to happen. The human paused, realizing something was wrong, and gently withdrew. A translator quickly corrected the misunderstanding, explaining that it was meant to be friendly. Slowly, the delegate relaxed, but a few observers couldn't stop whispering about how unpredictable the humans were. As the summit continued, humans displayed an unusual mixture of curiosity and caution. They asked about the political structures of other species, about conflicts and alliances, and even about dangerous regions that the humans had never intended to visit. They were not naive, but they did not carry the fear that many species considered natural in such circumstances. They seemed willing to step into the unknown, to observe carefully, and to adapt quickly if something went wrong. One delegate, representing a species with fragile bodies and slow reflexes, leaned forward cautiously. "How do you survive in your home world?" they asked. "The storms, the predators, the harsh conditions. It is impossible for any weak creature to endure." A human smiled gently and responded, "We survive because we adapt, we learn, we work together. Danger is always there, but we don't let it stop us. Sometimes we fail, but that is how we grow stronger." The room was silent. For many of the delegates, it was hard to understand. In their experience, survival was about avoiding danger, not facing it. The humans' words suggested a mindset completely different from the galaxy's norms. It was not fear that shaped their decisions. It was curiosity, problem-solving, and community. The humans continued, telling small stories about their home world. They spoke about storms that reshaped the land, creatures that could kill in an instant, and harsh climates that would have killed anyone unprepared. But they told these stories with humor and respect, highlighting lessons learned and clever solutions found. Even when the experiences were dangerous, the humans made them relatable. They spoke as if danger was a puzzle, not a threat. Some species tried to ask about the humans' physical abilities. The humans responded carefully, explaining that their bodies were strong and resilient because of their environment, but they did not boast or threaten. Their tone was matter of fact, almost casual, yet everyone present could feel the subtle power they carried. Small incidents kept happening throughout the summit. A human reached out to touch a floating display, accidentally, moving it, and quickly apologized. Some delegates flinched at the gesture, while others laughed quietly. Another human asked questions about a species' diet, only to discover that some of the foods were toxic to them. They stepped back immediately and adjusted their questions. Despite all these minor confusions, the summit progressed. The humans showed a rare combination of calmness, focus, and friendliness. They did not try to impress anyone with force. They did not try to dominate the conversation. Yet their presence demanded attention. Every delegate noticed that humans handled complex social situations naturally. They balanced curiosity with respect, confidence with humility, and observation with action. By the end of the first day, the delegates were exhausted, not from arguments or conflicts, but from processing the humans' unusual behavior. They had expected a species that would be fragile or fearful, or perhaps overly aggressive. Instead, they found beings who were strong, adaptive, and socially intuitive in ways that no one had encountered before. The humans were different from anything the galaxy had known, and that difference was both inspiring and disorienting. Outside the chamber, smaller groups of delegates began talking quietly among themselves. They speculated about what humans might do next. Some were curious to learn their problem-solving methods. Others wondered whether humans could help in dangerous projects no one else dared to attempt. A few, however, worried that this species could upset the balance of power. In subtle ways, the humans themselves remained largely unaware of the stir they caused. They spent the evening exploring the station, trying to understand the technology and culture around them. One human examined the gravity adjusters on a floor panel, while another quietly watched a holographic map of the surrounding systems. Their eyes lit up with excitement at small discoveries, whether it was a tool, a display, or a new kind of communication device. That evening, while the humans prepared for rest, the Kalari Council gathered to discuss the next steps. Some delegates suggested quarantining the humans until they could be studied fully. Others argued that the humans should be included in every project the galaxy considered dangerous or exploratory, because their abilities were unmatched. The conversation was heated but respectful. One Kalari elder finally said, "We misjudged them. They are not weak. They are not fragile. They are resilient. Their presence may seem strange, but perhaps it is exactly what we need to face the challenges ahead." Meanwhile, humans were already planning their next day. They wanted to learn more about the different species, the station systems, and how they could help. They were unaware that their casual curiosity had already begun to change opinions across the galaxy. Where fear had been expected, there was fascination. Where tension had been expected, there was cautious admiration. As night fell, the station hummed quietly. Stars glimmered through the windows, and the humans looked out, pointing at constellations with soft smiles. They spoke in whispers, sharing observations about the galaxies, the planets, and the strange beauty around them. To them, this was adventure, discovery, and opportunity, all wrapped into one. For the galaxy, it was the beginning of a transformation. Species that had once been cautious and insular now realized that these newcomers were unlike anything they had known. The humans were not threats, not conquerors, not fragile curiosities. They were problem solvers, survivors, and explorers with a new way of seeing danger, opportunity, and cooperation. By the time the humans rested for the night, the Kalari Council had reached an unusual consensus. These beings from the Death World were not just visitors, they were a force for change. And as the first true human ambassador stepped into the chamber the next morning, the delegates could only watch, fascinated, unsure of what would happen next, but certain that the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had arrived, and with them, a new way of thinking, a new energy, and a quiet reminder that survival, courage, and curiosity could reshape everything. The next morning, the station felt unusually alive. The corridors, normally quiet except for soft machinery hums, now echoed with whispers, footsteps, and occasional laughter. The humans moved among the delegates like they owned the place, but not in an aggressive way. It was as if they carried their world with them, a world that expected challenges, embraced them, and found a way to learn from every small problem. Some species observed from the balconies, keeping a careful distance. The humans seemed unaware of the attention. They were focused on understanding everything around them, the way light refracted through the station's crystalline walls, the subtle shifts in gravity along long hallways, and the quiet humming of systems that controlled life support and communication. Every gesture, every glance, every small step seemed intentional and thoughtful, but also relaxed and natural. When the first discussion session began, the humans gathered around a table with delegates from multiple species. The Kalari had set up holographic displays, maps, and charts showing trade routes, exploration zones, and environmental hazards. The humans looked over the materials carefully, asking simple, direct questions. "What is this route used for?" One asked. "What kinds of storms happen there? Are they predictable?" The delegates hesitated. Most species would expect questions about politics, history, or diplomacy first. But the humans' questions were practical, almost technical, as if they were trying to solve a puzzle rather than debate power. This shift in focus surprised many, and even the most experienced diplomats found themselves adjusting their expectations. One of the smaller delegates, a being with thin, flexible limbs and translucent skin, finally spoke. "You focus on practical survival before politics. That is unusual. Most species would first ask about territory, influence, or alliances." The human smiled gently. "If we don't understand the environment and the risks, then politics, alliances, and everything else become meaningless. First, we learn how things work. Then we decide how to act." That statement caused a small stir. Several delegates whispered to each other, trying to reconcile this approach with their own. Most civilizations started with power calculations. Humans started with understanding. The logic was simple but powerful. After a few hours, the humans suggested a demonstration. Not a fight or a display of strength, but a practical exercise to show problem-solving skills. They asked if it would be possible to simulate a situation on one of the station's training decks. A few delegates were wary, concerned that humans might overstep, but the humans insisted they only wanted to understand the environment and learn how to work with it. A training deck was cleared for a simulation. The humans studied the controls, the layouts, and the objectives carefully. Every movement was precise but relaxed. They observed the station's systems, predicted outcomes, and tested small solutions before making bigger moves. Even when a mistake happened, they adapted immediately, learning from it without frustration or panic. One of the delegates, who had never encountered humans before, whispered to another, "Look at how they handle errors. No one else in the galaxy does this. They fail and immediately learn. They never panic." By the end of the simulation, the humans had solved the challenge efficiently, but more importantly, they had done so in a way that highlighted teamwork, observation, and adaptability. Every delegate present noticed something unusual. The humans didn't just act, they inspired others to think differently. Later, during a break, the humans wandered into a quieter corridor. They noticed the small details others might ignore. A flickering light, a loose panel, the sound of air moving differently near a corner. They didn't see it as a problem. They saw it as information. One human reached out and gently adjusted a panel to stop the flicker, then smiled as if this small action made the environment slightly better. A Kelari observer, hidden behind a glass partition, watched silently. They had seen skilled species before, but none that moved through space and technology with such calm awareness. "They notice everything," the observer whispered to a colleague. "And they do it without fear, without arrogance. Everything we know about resilience, they seem to embody naturally." When the humans returned to the main hall, the delegates were waiting for their report. Humans explained what they had observed during the simulation in clear, simple words. They didn't boast. They didn't exaggerate. They simply described what worked, what didn't, and what could be improved. The tone was neutral, calm, but confident, like reporting facts that mattered, not opinions that demanded attention. That afternoon, the humans proposed another idea. "We should explore the nearby sector," one said. "It's been mapped, but no one has tested how quickly conditions can change. It might give valuable information for trade and safety." The delegates exchanged uneasy looks. This region was considered dangerous, full of unpredictable energy fluctuations and shifting gravitational anomalies. Most species avoided it entirely. But the humans didn't see danger in the same way. They saw it as a challenge that could be studied, understood, and prepared for. A senior Kalari finally nodded. "We will allow it, under controlled conditions. But your actions must be coordinated with our systems." The human smiled again, a warm, unassuming expression. "That's all we ask. Guidance helps us learn faster." Preparations for the exploration took hours. The humans checked their gear, studied maps, and reviewed environmental data. They discussed plans quietly among themselves, occasionally asking delegates for clarification. Their curiosity was endless, but it was guided by caution and thoughtfulness. When the small team departed for the sector, other delegates watched from observation windows. Some felt admiration. Others felt confusion. None felt fear, at least. Not in the usual sense. The humans were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability carried no malice. Only curiosity and resilience. As the humans navigated the sector, they encountered minor anomalies, shifting energy fields, small magnetic storms, and unstable terrain. Instead of panic, they took careful measurements, adapted their approach, and continued forward. Every action was methodical yet flexible, and every decision was made with careful observation. They sent reports back to the station continuously, sharing their findings with the delegates in real time. For many species, it was astonishing to see a team move through danger and report accurately while maintaining composure. The humans seemed to thrive in conditions that would make most species retreat immediately. By the time the team returned to the station, the delegates were waiting anxiously. The humans presented their findings clearly and simply. Nothing was harmful beyond normal environmental risks, one said. But we learned how quickly conditions can change and what small adjustments keep us safe. The room was silent for a moment. Then delegates began to ask questions, more curious than ever before. They wanted to understand the humans' approach, how they could apply it, and how it could benefit their own species. In the evening, humans walked through the corridors again. They didn't rush. They didn't boast. They simply moved, observing, learning, and sharing quiet thoughts with each other. Some delegates, who had been shy or cautious before, started approaching them, asking for advice or simply curious about their perspectives. By the end of the day, it was clear that the humans had done more than just explore a dangerous sector. They had changed the way the galaxy thought about risk, observation, and collaboration. They had shown that facing danger with careful study, flexibility, and teamwork was possible, and perhaps even preferable to hiding from it. In the council chambers that night, the Kalari elders discussed the humans again. They are unlike anything we have seen, one said. We expected a fragile species, or perhaps a cautious one. Instead, we have beings who are fearless, adaptable, and curious. They change the way we see survival. Another added, we underestimated them at first. But now, I see that our galaxy has gained a new perspective. We can learn from them if we are willing to watch and listen. And so, as the humans rested, their presence continued to ripple through the station. Their curiosity, resilience, and calm energy inspired those around them. They were not conquerors. They were not fragile visitors. They were teachers in their own way, showing that survival, understanding, and adaptability could coexist beautifully. As stars twinkled outside the observation windows, the humans slept lightly, ready for the next day. Unaware of the influence they had already begun to spread, they dreamed simply of discovery, learning, and the endless curiosity that had carried them across space. The galaxy was watching, and the humans, with their quiet strength and endless curiosity, were changing it without even trying. The next morning, the station felt almost alive with anticipation. Word had spread quickly among the delegates and crew. The humans were going on another exploration, this time to a region even less mapped than before. Most species avoided it entirely. They said it was unstable, unpredictable, and possibly dangerous. But the humans, as usual, seemed calm and confident. They were not reckless. They were simply curious, eager to understand, and willing to face challenges directly. Before departure, the humans spent hours preparing. They studied charts, examined environmental data, and checked every system they would rely on. They discussed plans quietly among themselves, pointing out possibilities, noting risks, and sharing observations. Even in the presence of delegates, they spoke simply and clearly, making sure everyone could understand their reasoning. A small group of delegates, fascinated by the humans' approach, decided to observe the journey. They wanted to understand how these beings from a death world navigated dangers that others avoided entirely. The humans welcomed them politely, explaining each step, each decision, and each adjustment. It was not arrogance. They simply treated observation as part of the learning process. As the exploration began, the humans' calm demeanor set a tone for everyone present. Unlike many species, they did not rush or make hasty judgments. They moved carefully, yet confidently, adjusting to subtle shifts in the environment. Small disturbances in gravity, unusual energy readings, or minor magnetic storms did not unsettle them. They observed, calculated, adapted, and continued forward. Delegates watching from observation pods were stunned. They had expected tension, perhaps even fear, but the humans acted as though every anomaly was a lesson rather than a threat. Their ability to stay composed under conditions that could terrify most species was remarkable. One observer whispered, "They are fearless, but not reckless. They see danger as information, not a weapon." Midway through the journey, the humans encountered a sudden energy fluctuation. The lights flickered, the ship's systems momentarily lagged, and for a heartbeat, it seemed the situation could become dangerous. Most species would have panicked, retreated, or sent emergency signals. But the humans responded immediately, yet calmly. They analyzed the energy pattern, adjusted the ship's systems, and navigated the fluctuation with precision. "What just happened?" asked one of the observing delegates. "One small problem," one human answered simply. "Nothing we can't handle." The simplicity of the response astonished the delegates. To them, such calmness was almost alien. It was not that the humans were ignoring danger. They were engaging with it, understanding it, and turning it into knowledge. Every small challenge became an opportunity to learn. Further along, the region revealed more unusual phenomena. Floating crystalline structures that emitted low-frequency vibrations, clouds of charged particles that shifted unpredictably, and small asteroid clusters moving in unexpected patterns. The humans studied each carefully. They collected samples when safe, noted patterns, and discussed possibilities with the observing delegates. Their focus was steady, their curiosity endless. At one point, a minor collision with a small asteroid caused a systems alert. The humans responded immediately. They repaired minor damage while continuing their navigation, all without panic or complaint. One delegate, who had never seen such composure, leaned forward and whispered, "No species I know could do this." Calmly, "They are extraordinary." Hours passed as the humans explored, learned, and adapted. They discovered pockets of stable energy in the region that could be useful for travel or resource collection. They mapped paths that other species had ignored, showing that what seemed dangerous could be understood and safely navigated. Every observation they made was shared with the station in real time, creating a live record of discovery. By the time they returned, the delegates were both exhausted and inspired. They had witnessed humans face unpredictable danger, adapt quickly, and learn continuously. It was a demonstration not of power, but of resilience, intelligence, and calm confidence. For many, it was a revelation. The humans had turned the feared region into a place of knowledge and opportunity. When the team returned to the station, the delegates gathered around immediately, asking questions, analyzing data, and discussing possibilities. The humans explained everything simply: what they observed, what worked, what didn't, and what could be improved. They did not claim superiority or demand attention. They presented facts and ideas in a clear, practical way, The discussion soon shifted to potential collaborations. Other species wanted to learn the humans' methods. Could they teach teams to adapt to unpredictable conditions? Could their approach to risk and observation help with exploration, trade, or even diplomacy? The humans, naturally curious and generous, offered guidance. They explained techniques, shared small lessons, and encouraged delegates to ask questions freely. A smaller species, known for fragility and caution, asked hesitantly, "How do you remain so calm under pressure? We freeze, panic, or retreat. How do you manage fear?" A human answered simply, "We understand the risk, prepare as best we can, and face it. Fear doesn't disappear, but it becomes a tool instead of a barrier. We observe, we plan, and we adapt. That is how we move forward." The simplicity of the explanation resonated. It was not magic, not special equipment, not an inherent power. It was mindset. Observation, preparation, adaptation, and teamwork. These were traits that could be learned, shared, and applied by anyone willing to try. That evening, the humans did something unexpected. They walked through the station quietly, visiting places not marked for visitors, observing small systems, and talking softly to the delegates who had accompanied them. They laughed lightly at minor quirks, expressed wonder at small phenomena, and asked simple, thoughtful questions that made the delegates reflect on their own assumptions. One delegate, usually reserved and cautious, finally spoke. "You see things we overlook. You notice patterns, risks, and possibilities we ignore. You change the way we think without demanding it." The humans smiled politely. "We are curious, and we listen. Curiosity is not just for us. It can be shared." By the end of the day, it was clear that the humans' presence had already changed the station. Small groups of delegates began experimenting with human-style observation techniques, testing methods for adaptation, and discussing approaches to challenges they had previously avoided. The humans' simple philosophy of curiosity, preparation, and adaptability was spreading quietly, influencing the galaxy in subtle but profound ways. As night fell, the humans rested. Outside, stars sparkled across the endless expanse of space. The delegates continued to talk in small groups, reflecting on what they had witnessed. Fear had been replaced by fascination. Caution had shifted toward curiosity, and a quiet respect had grown, one that would ripple far beyond the station. The humans themselves, unaware of the full extent of their influence, dreamed not of power or recognition, but of discovery. They thought of unknown regions to explore, puzzles to solve, and knowledge to gain. For them, every challenge was a story waiting to be understood, every risk an opportunity to learn, and every encounter a chance to share understanding. In the young council chambers, the Kalari elders met late into the night. "These humans are unlike anything we imagined," one said. "They do not fight, yet they are strong. They do not fear, yet they survive. They teach without preaching, and they inspire without commanding. How can we integrate such a species into our galaxy?" Another elder nodded. "We may not fully understand them yet, but they show us a different way, a way where danger, curiosity, and intelligence coexist. If we follow their example, we may see opportunities we never noticed before." And so, as the station grew quiet under the soft glow of distant stars, the humans rested, ready for the next day. Their calm energy, endless curiosity, and quiet confidence had already begun to reshape the way the galaxy viewed exploration, risk, and knowledge. The humans had arrived, not as conquerors or threats, but as pioneers, teachers, and reminders that survival and understanding could go hand in hand. Every step they took, every observation they made, sent ripples across the galaxy, ripples that would change perspectives, shift expectations, and quietly rewrite the rules of interaction among the stars. For the humans, tomorrow would be another day of learning, exploring, and discovering. For the galaxy, tomorrow promised the continuation of a quiet revolution, led not by force, but by curiosity, resilience, and the simple power of facing the unknown with steady eyes and open hearts. The station was quieter than usual in the early morning, with only the soft hum of machinery and distant footsteps echoing through the corridors. The humans were already awake, moving calmly through their routines. They checked systems, reviewed data from previous explorations, and spoke softly to each other, sharing thoughts and observations. Their presence was calm, yet it carried a quiet energy that made those nearby alert and curious without realizing it. Today was different. It wasn't just another exploration or exercise. The humans were about to demonstrate something the galaxy had never seen before. A true combination of resilience, adaptability, and collaboration under extreme conditions. The region they intended to explore was notorious. Many species avoided it entirely, claiming it was impossible to navigate safely. But the humans did not see impossibility. They saw a challenge and an opportunity to learn. Before departure, the delegates gathered. Some were skeptical, others curious, and a few were openly worried. The humans greeted them politely and explained the plan clearly, step by step. "We will move slowly and observe everything," one said. "If something seems unsafe, we adjust. If we find something useful, we study it carefully. Every observation is important." The simplicity and calmness of their explanation reassured many delegates. It was different from the usual bluster and warnings other species gave. There was no exaggeration, no fear, and no empty promises. Just clarity and a clear focus on learning. As the humans moved into the dangerous region, the anomalies appeared. Immediately, shimmering energy fields warped the space around them. Shifting currents of particles moved unpredictably, and strange crystalline structures emerged seemingly from nowhere. For many species, these conditions would have triggered panic. For the humans, it was simply data. Observation, preparation, and careful adjustment were their tools. At one point, a sudden burst of energy threw minor systems into temporary instability. The lights flickered, and the ship trembled slightly. Delegates holding on to observation panels whispered anxiously. But the humans acted calmly, checking instruments, adjusting systems, and making precise corrections. "It's manageable," one said. "Nothing we can't handle. We just need to adapt." The calmness was contagious. Delegates began to watch closely, noticing the humans' methodical approach. They didn't ignore the danger. They studied it, understood it, and used it to guide their next steps. Each decision was deliberate, yet flexible. It was a balance most species struggled to maintain. Further into the region, the humans discovered pockets of phenomena no one had predicted. Small energy vortices hovered near clusters of asteroids. Magnetic storms shifted unpredictably, and patterns emerged only if observed carefully over time. The humans took notes, shared insights with the station, and adjusted their route accordingly. Every obstacle became a lesson. Every risk became an opportunity to learn. Delegates started asking questions, not out of fear, but from genuine curiosity. "How do you notice things so quickly?" one asked. "How do you stay calm when everything seems chaotic?" The humans smiled. "We focus on what we can understand first. Fear only distracts from observation. If we look carefully, plan, and adjust, we can move forward safely." Calmness comes from preparation and teamwork, not from avoiding risk. By midday, the humans had navigated deeper than anyone had expected. They mapped unstable paths, identified potential hazards, and discovered areas that could serve as safe havens for future travelers. More importantly, they demonstrated a philosophy of exploration. Face the unknown, learn from it, and adapt continuously. The delegates were inspired. Some began taking notes, trying to replicate human techniques in small exercises. Others discussed what they had witnessed among themselves, recognizing that this was not just about survival, it was about a new way of thinking. The humans' approach was practical, grounded in observation, but also profoundly empowering. As the humans neared the edge of the region, an unexpected anomaly appeared, a rapidly shifting energy field that could have destroyed most ships. Sensors fluctuated wildly, and the path forward seemed impossible. Yet the humans did not hesitate. They paused, analyzed patterns, and noticed small repetitions in the chaos. Using careful adjustments and teamwork, they navigated through, step by step, until the field was safely behind them. When they reported their success back to the station, the room was silent for a moment. Even the most experienced delegates were stunned. This was not luck or chance. It was observation, understanding, and adaptation in action. One elder whispered, "They are rewriting what we thought was possible." After the navigation was complete, the humans spent time examining the unusual phenomena they had passed through. They collected samples, made careful measurements, and noted patterns that could guide future travelers. Every action was precise but unhurried. They did not rush to claim victory or make a display. Their focus was understanding, learning, and sharing knowledge. Later, back on the station, the humans presented their findings to the council. They explained the anomalies, described the navigation techniques they had used, and suggested ways to apply the lessons to other regions. Their words were simple, their explanations clear, and their tone calm. It was not a lecture, it was an invitation to learn and understand. Delegates asked questions eagerly. Some wanted to apply the techniques to exploration, others to trade, or safety protocols. The humans responded patiently, offering insights without arrogance. "We do not claim to know everything," one said. "We only know how to observe, learn, and adapt." That approach can be applied anywhere. The discussion went late into the evening. By the end, it was clear that the humans had changed the perspective of the council. Fear of the unknown had been replaced by curiosity. Hesitation had been replaced by cautious experimentation. And skepticism had been replaced by respect. After the council meeting, the humans walked quietly through the station corridors. They observed small details, lights flickering in minor patterns, systems working slightly off balance, and minor adjustments that could improve efficiency. To them, it was not work, it was curiosity in action. Their presence was unassuming, yet it radiated competence and calm confidence. Some delegates approached them, asking for advice on small challenges in their own systems. The humans shared simple, practical solutions, demonstrating how careful observation and teamwork could solve problems without fear or panic. It was a teaching moment, but also a sharing of philosophy. Understand, adapt, and support one another. That night, the station was calm. Humans rested lightly, but their influence lingered. Delegates discussed new ideas, small experiments, and possibilities inspired by what they had witnessed. The humans had arrived as strangers from a harsh world, but they were leaving as teachers of resilience, curiosity, and teamwork. In private council chambers, the elders reflected. "They are not like other species," one said. "We expected frailty or fear. Instead, we found beings who face danger calmly, who adapt, and who inspire others to think differently." Another elder added, "Their approach is simple, yet profound. Observation, preparation, and adaptation. They do not dominate, they teach. They do not fear, they understand." Perhaps the galaxy needs more of this way of thinking. And so, as the stars twinkled beyond the station's observation windows, the humans rested, dreaming not of conquest or recognition, but of discovery, understanding, and exploration. Every challenge they had faced was a story to learn from. Every obstacle had been a lesson. Every interaction had been an opportunity to share knowledge. The galaxy, for its part, had been quietly transformed. Species who had feared unknown regions now saw possibility. Delegates who had doubted strength now saw resilience. And even the elders, wise and experienced, recognized that these humans from a death world had brought something unique, a quiet revolution of thought, courage, and curiosity. The humans would continue to explore. They would continue to learn. They would continue to face the unknown with calm eyes and open minds. And the galaxy, in turn, would continue to watch, learn, and change. For the first time, it was clear, humans did not need to conquer, dominate, or fight to make a difference. Their presence alone, their way of facing challenges, and their endless curiosity were enough to inspire, to teach, and to reshape the future of the galaxy. As dawn broke over the station, the humans prepared for the next journey. The unknown awaited, but they did not fear it. They understood it, they adapted to it, and they would continue to grow stronger with each step. And so ended this chapter of their story. A story of courage without arrogance, curiosity without limits, and the quiet power of facing the unknown. With calm, clear minds, the humans had arrived, not as conquerors, but as explorers, teachers, and reminders that resilience and understanding could change the galaxy forever.